I'm Vito. I own Braveheart American Bulldogs, established in 1994. I got my first dog in 1988. Don't really even know what her pedigree was. I think she was mainly painter because she was white, had pink eyelids, and acted like a pit bull. I had a cattle dog and a Doberman at the time, and she would run up and down the fence fight with the neighbor's either Cocker Spaniel or Labrador, I can't remember. And eventually she busted the pickets out and drug him through. Cost me like $400 in vet bills. So then I got a couple dogs. And the first male I kept was this big dog called Rebel Machines Explosion. He was like a Rebel Rouser grandson. He was 7/8 Johnson. And then I started with two girls that were like 15/16 Johnson. My dog Red Hot Reba and Lily. And then I got Broadzilla from Tyson and Sally. And she was probably what I bred around first. I inbred her 3 times and outcrossed her once. Remember in my dreams, like if you told me when I was a kid, oh yeah, you're going to breed dogs, I'm like, no, I'm not going to breed dogs. Because I worked for a little breeder when I was a kid that lived across the park from us. She was a wealthy housewife. Her husband was like a DA or something. And she had like 15 Dobermans. And she, like, I used to bug the crap out of her because she'd walk her puppies at the park and I would just wouldn't leave her alone. And she told me I need somebody to clean my kennels. So I cleaned her kennels and I didn't know what she paid me. And I went to shows. She'd ask my parents, is it okay if we take them? So I'd go to shows with her. I went to one out of town. I can't remember where. And I was immersed in the 1970s show crowd of Dobermans, which was like the pinnacle of Doberman shows. I mean, there's people that were millionaires that had co-owned dogs, and the dogs just traveled in a semi with the most popular handler to every AKC show, just accumulating as many points as possible. Mm-hmm. So these people I thought they were nuts. Like, they'd come to these shows in these polyester gowns and gold jewelry and big, like, Doberman pendant and earrings. And then the dog would win, and these women would lose their minds. It's like they won Miss America or something. And the second litter with her was Big Mac, the guy that just picked up a puppy from me. And Iron Man Tyson was supposed to be like 135.
He was a monster.
He was my keeper. He was 5 months old, I think, when he got him.
Yeah, I picked up a puppy. He was just, oh my God.
I was such a Nazi.
148, you said?
148.
Almost 30 years later. That was my second litter with her. I own Reba's half-sister, my dog Tiger Lily, who was a little bit better producer than Reba. I bred her to Tyson, and I tried to breed her to Tug of War. I did breed her to Tug of War. I brought her home and stuck her in the backyard, and my big dog somehow got his nail behind the wooden door and opened it. And I was doing something else. And I see him tied to her. Well, he was 148 pounds. He was 29 inches tall.
Who is this?
Rebel Machines Explosion. And Lily was tiny. She was maybe 21, maybe 20 inches tall and about 70 pounds, maybe. Well, he had tied her and her back legs were off the ground and her back legs were doing this. And at that time I had a patio and I was going to build a deck, and I built up where the deck was going to go with rock. So I picked her up and stuck her there. And so I had a DNA test them. And of course, when the puppies were born, Jeff Daly owned Tug of War at the time, and she was a Tug of War granddaughter, which Tug of War was from famous combination called Dozer Ruby. But now looking back, Dozer was a beautiful, big, freaky looking dog. He didn't have a real short muzzle. He had a huge head, thick, typey, just, all that guy did was put a picture of him in Dog World, mm-hmm. and he sold all the puppies. So it was like Dozer Ruby, Dozer Ruby, Dozer Ruby. Everybody wanted Dozer Ruby. And that's where Tyson's mom was Dozer Ruby. A dog called Bam Bam, that was a weight pull dog, was Dozer Ruby. There was a bunch of them. And then Tug of War was Dozer Ruby. The problem was Dozer was a psycho. Like, I think they put him down because he would get weird for no reason. Like he was okay with the guy's wife and daughters and kids. And he'll even say he liked about 2 people. And then he was automatic for no reason. He would just be, and that's the temperament you get with some Johnson dogs. It comes from that machine Buckaroo and machine Susie Q. Of course, I don't know anything about the 100% Johnson dogs now, but back in the day, I knew everything. And they all trace back to either machine Susie Q or machine Buckaroo.
Okay.
That dog, Rebel Rouser, Johnson had, people that know, he was a dog that he got back. I saw, and it's all a true story because I saw the certified letter. And he was a dog. They sold these people in New York. They lived on the 5th floor of a tenement building. And Johnson said that they were jumping in off the fire escape with wiffle ball bats, smacking the puppy, teaching them how to be mean. But it was genetic. Ended up, he bit a couple people, and then he bit a man in an elevator. She was taking him to go to the bathroom, and she said, please take the next elevator. He doesn't like men. And he goes, screw you. And the door shut. As soon as the door shut, he chomped the guy's hand, broke like 4 bones in his hand. And so Johnson got him back. And this guy used to be in the breed, Andrew Robinson, who lives in Georgia. He went to the airport with Mr. Johnson to get this dog, and he was in a crate. They put her on a red wagon, brought her to the truck, came home to Johnson's. There was a female in heat, Colette the 10th. She was in heat. They had her all ready. They brought the thing, opened the gate, shut the gate, and he was in there for a week or 2. Weeks later, and to put him in with another female, and they didn't know any other way to do it, so they had the vet tranquilize him, shot him with the tranquilizer dart. I got wild at him. I mean, I don't know if all this is true. This is what Johnson told me, but they'd taken that female out, and they were going to put another one in, but he started waking up. And then they were too afraid to do it, and then they backed off, and he just started going apeshit, grabbing 5-foot chain link fence and smashing on it. The vet left eventually, and the dog wouldn't stop, and he broke out of a gate, busted the gate and broke out. And the way Johnson's yard was, there was a main yard and then a corridor with yards off of it. And then there was a gate at the front of that. So if dogs got out, they couldn't. Well, Johnson used to tell that story. He got out, he broke his gate, folded it up like tissue paper. He had one more gate, and then he was in the general public. And so he called his neighbor. He said, my neighbor's a sharpshooter. He came over, he shot that dog in the head, and he got back up. And then he shot him a second time in the heart, and it killed him. Well, that fantastical story, that dog, Colette the 10th, produced several of these dogs, Rebelette, Rebel Rouser, the 1st or 2nd or something like that. This dog called Peeler's Chief, and Peeler's Chief was the father to my big dog. And my dog got to the point too. I socialized him, dominated him, trained him. He was perfect with me, perfect with my wife, perfect with kids, like instantly like kids. He was fine with most women. But once he hit about 2 years of age, 3 years of age, if I was home, anybody could come in. But if I wasn't home, my brother-in-law couldn't come over. My father-in-law couldn't come over. And it wasn't like he didn't like God. He was serious. He wanted to kill them. I think it's out of what the traditional Southern Bulldog should be. They're protective, but they're supposed to be bulletproof, which makes sense to me now, all these years later, because I've dealt with all these hog hunters, and you have to have a really good temperament on an American Bulldog to make a good hog dog, to make a good catch dog, because they got to go in a pickup truck with bird dogs or bay dogs, not kill them, not fight, fight a wild boar, which is exerts a lot of energy, and it can get bloody. You can get stuck. And then they need to turn off their switch, load up after it's caught, and go for the next one. And if they're lucky, 3 or 4 hogs that day. And it's exhausting. Like, I've been on hog hunts just walking, and it's like, holy crap, there's a lot of walking. And then if you get a pig, you got to drag it, dress it, do all that stuff. And you can just imagine the dogs. It's like, when you're a wrestler, you know what it's like when you wrestle for 5 minutes or something, or 3 minutes, and you're exhausted, so tired you can't lift your arms.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it's got to be, because it's not just a wrestling match. It's a wrestling match. It's a total body workout. They're holding on this monster. Even a 100-pound hog, 200-pound hog can sling a dog around. No problem. You got to have a bulletproof temperament. And a lot of the really good hog dogs, they come home And, hillbillies have a lot of kids covered in blood. They've just been in battle. Some of them have open cuts, and these kids are jumping on them like it's a jungle gym, and they would never hurt them kids.
So do you think that's a more stable temperament with the American Bulldog?
Yeah, I think the Johnson dogs, now back in the day, they used to say that's why the whole hybrid thing got hyped. A guy out in California called Kyle Semensik, he had Sugar Kennels. He was one of the early guys. He bought dogs from Johnson. He was a Rottweiler breeder, and he liked really huge dogs. So that's why he liked Johnson stuff. But most of the early working dog people hated Johnson because they know he put English Bulldog in there and St. Bernard and non-working type dogs. And they wanted more of the traditional Bulldog, catch dog, stuff like that, working dog, super athlete. And
what were the dogs before he put the English, the St. Bernard? Like Dick the Bruiser, Mac the Masher?
Yeah, Dick the Bruiser, we don't know. People say, oh, that's a perfect classic example of a Southern White, which it probably was. I don't know what Southern Whites were. The old timers will say there's no pit bull in them, which now I look back at it, they may be telling the truth because the pit bull was named a breed after so many years. It didn't come here being called the pit bull. They were called bull and terrier. They were called Staffordshire, Irish fighting dog or whatever. And we developed it into a thing. Well, the whole time it was being developed, if you know anything about game bred pit bull breeders now, they used to keep yards of 50 or 100 dogs on chains. And they test them at a certain age to see if they're game. And if they're not game, unfortunately, some of them they would just put them down, or if they're good dogs, they give them to a rancher, friend, or whoever. Right. Because down south in rural America, people, they'd have a big dog in their wagon, or, it was handy to have a big dog to move cattle or whatever. A white bulldog, a big bulldog, or not even white was, I've heard so many stories of old people I've met when I first got in it, people that are like in their 90s. They'd see my dog and be like, oh, it's a pretty bulldog. I said, yeah, how'd you know it was a bulldog? Because most people think it's not a bulldog because it's not an English-looking bulldog.
Right.
Oh, I grew up in the Carolinas, and we had them. They were good family dogs. I said, yeah, what'd your dad do with them? He says, oh, they helped around the farm. They were playmate to us kids. And he said, my dad would go hog hunting with them too. So my theory is that was the same breeds that went into a pit bull. And maybe they were too big for fighting. I think these are that kind of catch dog, bulldog.
I mean, really, I've only seen him beat the antagonist one time. And that was with my dad's Rottweiler in the house that he's, accustomed to.
Oh, Rottweiler?
Yeah.
I have Rottweilers as well.
Them Rottweilers are pussies.
Yeah, they are. Man, I'll tell you what, your line of bulldogs is different compared to most bulldogs. A lot of the ABs, they don't stand a chance against a Rottie, but Vito's dogs they have more grit to them,
Back in the day, they used to say you got to have some Johnson blood in there. That's why they did this whole thing with the hybrids, is because they said a lot of Scott dogs just don't have any man aggression, which is what a lot of game bred pit bulls. They're the type of dog that you could take off the chain and give it to the next guy. He'll love that family too. He'll go to somebody new. And, of course, in their fighting dogs, you get down in the pit, and they sometimes in Ireland, they'd have their kids down there, get down there, say, come on, Spot, we need to win. Daddy needs a shickle.
Mm-hmm.
He needs to win. And they're right there. They don't have natural human aggression.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them don't have any. They'll want to fight another dog, but they just don't have that human aggression. Johnson sold a dog to that guy out there in California called Rip and Woody. Rip and Woody only had like 1/8 or 1/16 of that West Champs High Hopes. And he was a big 120, 130 pound dog, just horribly built, skanky dog, giant head, long muzzle. He was cross-eyed. You couldn't see it unless you saw him close up. It was not his eyes. It was the position of the eye socket. And his son, that was real famous, a dog called Gator Red, was the same way. They saw him at a show. what the hell? Like his head was deformed where the eye sockets just didn't align. They looked cross-eyed. But that was a big breeding too. Rip and Woody and Sheena. Sheena was an inbred Sergeant Rock daughter. And Woody was this big Johnson dog. That guy used to brag Rip and Woody could put the bite into a beagle, bred to a beagle. His mom
He was hell.
wasn't my best dog, but she had the best temperament. Like that little bitch thought she could take on the devil. She had zero
He was
backup.
harmless. Other dogs, annihilate them. People, no problems. Cats, kill them.
So this is off of Red Hot Reba and who?
Iron Man Tyson.
Yeah, those
Really?
pictures are old. Those are from like 2002, 2003. I'd take them out in the boat. You jump right off the front of the boat before we even got to shore.
Broadzilla was so different. She was real tight skinned, real muscular, low body fat. She had super tight hips. And then I discovered Mufasa. He had the same thing. And I tried to breed those two together. It didn't work. So then I started I thought, well, I'm just going to tighten up on her and then breed Mufasa kids to Broadzilla kids, which is kind of what I did for a while. And that's what made Go Ballistic. Go Ballistic's father was nephew bred to his aunt, Broadzilla, a dog called Logger. And then I bred him to this female that I actually got from Kenny, the guy who owned Mufasa, to use in my Alu Bulls, my little oldie program, because she was only about 60 pounds, maybe 59, 60 pounds. Her name was, I called her Destiny's Child. And I bred her into my Alu Bulls. And then the second time I thought, wow, she was such a weird dog. She was maybe 18 inches at the shoulder, 60 pounds maybe. She looked like an English bulldog with this pit bull steroid body. She had crazy muscle. I did that breeding. I produced Go Ballistic. And he was a bully dog and he was muscular. He wasn't the greatest dog himself. Like, he was okay. He was a good dog.
Mm-hmm.
But when I bred him, he to this day is probably one of the strongest studs I've ever had.
Really?
Yeah. He had Broadzilla's hips. They were in the 3s. He had similar Broadzilla type. He wasn't quite as nice as her, I don't think. But I could breed him to the giraffe and they'd come out bully. There was a famous breeding I did, Betty, which was a Mufasa daughter, bred to Go Ballistic. Betty Ballistic litters. The first time I did it, I sent one to Germany that eventually ended up in the Netherlands called King Goliath. He had an enormous head, real short muzzle, and they had really ripped, tight bodies. And I had a dog called the Full Monty was his brother, and he was a father to Blue Ballistic. And so I did that breeding twice, another time, and everybody, I could, if I just wanted to make money, that would have been it. I could have stopped right there, because this was 20 years ago. I was getting $2,500, $3,500 a puppy. Wow. I had people begging me for a puppy and to redo the breeding. And I was so pig-headed. I was like, I don't like to redo breeding. So I got conned into redoing that breeding. That's a whole other long story. But it really produced good dogs. They weren't perfect. Well, that was about the time I started realizing that, like, when I first got into American Bulldogs, the big attraction was they were a big, rough and tumble bulldog.
Right.
A real deal. The buck stops here. This is an English bulldog. This is a dog that can catch wild boar. We used to see in Dog World magazine, all these performance standard guys had so-and-so, we strapped to 40 pounds to him on a thing. He can run 10 miles. They had a guy, those lamp machines, the cable.
Yeah.
We have his dog pulling up 150 pounds or some crazy thing. They did weight pull. It was based on size, thickness, but not short muzzles and really bully dogs. And especially the performance standard guys, they were just all out. The thing about American Bulldogs, it took me 15, 20 years to realize it, what the really good temperament is. It's that catch type dog that has an on and off switch and is sweet, a gentleman. I had several instances where I thought, well, because a lot of my mainly Johnson dogs, and I used to just think it was Johnson selecting, but I think it has to do with the English Bulldog. You know, something about English Bulldogs. They're feisty, nutty, goofy suckers, but when the rubber hits the road, they can't cope.
Mm-hmm.
So, and sometimes they're outwardly dog aggressive and outwardly just stupid hypo. And you pair that up with the bad breathing that comes with them, with the Johnson type dog, Johnson gene pool. Yeah, recipe for disaster. And what everybody wanted was Johnson's machine dogs. Machine dogs were one generation or two generations off the English Bulldog. They were a little more uniform, typey bully. Not as extreme as what we got now, but you know, like the Mean Machine, Incredible Mean Machine, the Red Machine, they're pretty bully, wide-chested, thick dogs. You could see the English Bulldog influence. So everybody wanted that. So what happened for a long time was people would come to look at your pups, and if it wasn't undershot at 5 or 6 weeks, they didn't want it. If it was scissor bit or even, it's just silly because I find the American Bulldogs that are undershot at 4, 6, 8 weeks, they have an opportunity of their teeth sticking out because they start getting that real undershot at 4 months. If they're even, then they might have a good undershot.
Just slightly undershot.
Yeah. There's a whole bunch of guys that they don't mind the English Bulldog traits, you know. I didn't, probably when I started, I was one of those dudes because I produced some freaky dogs. Like I had a dog, Blue Ballistic. He was a freaky. He looked like a white gorilla. I almost got rid of that dog 2 or 3 times as a puppy.
That's what people want. They want that big, muscled up, big head.
I do too. I like that.
Sure.
But back then, you know, in the early 2000s, my whole thing, I came from Dobermans. You know, there's no such thing as a cowhock Doberman. They don't. All of them move good, structured, beautiful. And I was wanting that. I wanted that. And I kind of got it with BMJ, Huggy Gaucho. All those guys were pretty well structured. That was my big pursuit. So I had this big dog, this white gorilla that I never took to a show. I never took a lot of pictures of him. I didn't promote him because his conformation wasn't perfect. He's a little too, his back feet weren't as straight as I like. And he just was a freak. And when he ran, he looked like a bear. I mean, he's so wide in the front. It was, you know, he can't single track and really be efficient.
Right.
Like lumbering, but he was a powerful, muscular dog. He had hips, 35, super tight hips. Great temperament. I love the shit out of that dog. I never took him off my yard that much. I took him to a training session a little bit to do bite work and stuff, but he was already like 4 years old. And, he was easy. He didn't give a shit about nothing, but he wasn't socialized. I can't really say I never worked him. He bit a sleeve just for fun. I used to have a big garage door spring in the front of my yard on a cedar tree that wasn't really it was about this big around. And he'd get out there and shake the tree. I used to think, what the hell? He's not going to rip it out of the ground. I mean, he'd pull on it. He loved to do that. But he also would rip. I'd put old jeans on there and tie them up in knots, and he'd rip them and eat them. And I loved that dog so much. I was offered a lot of money for him. And I eventually sold him, not for the money, but because I loved him so much. I'd bred him a lot. I didn't really need him anymore. And I thought he'd retire as a family dog with this girl. And she seemed like she was a vet tech. She seemed like she wanted to do the right thing. She was checking hips and all that stuff. And I'd sold it for like $8,000 and she paid me $4,000. And then I told her she'd add up to a year to pay me the rest from his stud fees. I used to get, I wouldn't even promote him. I'd get people that just come out of the woodwork and they'd call me and I'd say, no, I won't keep your bitch. And no, I'm not shipping semen. No, I don't want to be messing with all that. And they drive to my house and rent a hotel room and do 2 or 3 breedings or whatever. And that dog made about $15,000 a year in stud fees. He fed all my other dogs. They don't care about show titles. They care about that wow factor, that unique thing that nobody else has.
Do you find it hard to be able to integrate the wow factor of a bulldog with the performance type to be able to create a healthy dog that also looks like a freak?
Yeah. Yeah. This dog's a good example. He's a puppy. And I'm thrilled about him. I love him, but he's not a dog that's going to set the world on fire because his head, I mean, he's never going to have a bowed out front end. I mean, I don't know. He's only 8 months old, so it's hard to tell, but he's mainly standard blood. You know, he's probably 5/8 or 3/4.
Who does he come off of?
He's off of Fedor. Fedor's like 13/16 performance dog. He's 3/8 bullhead's dose. And then he's like 3/16 Supreme Grand Champion Buster. And the rest is all my blood. So I consider him a subline. It's a little bit of Braveheart, but it's another line I brought along for 4 or 5 generations. Dose, his head was not like a machine type English bulldog influence head, but it was blocky, thick. His muzzle, what I loved about his between his eyes, that was very voluminous, and the top of his muzzle was real wide and voluminous.
Right.
Like this sucker. And he was bully, but not a traditional looking bully type head, a real wide muzzle. But that's another thing I hate about some of the, like off Mufasa and a lot of the really extreme Fostati stuff. You get a real neat looking bully head, but then if you look at their chin, it's real narrow and their front canines are about this far apart. It's just like weird. It's all big cheek muscles, lips, and big top cranium.
With the very thin muzzle.
Yeah, it's got a weird chin, thin chin, which that's the thing I loved about Broadzilla. She had a broad chin. I just bred Dosey to my mainline dog, Bollocks, who he's got some standard blood, but it's mainly Braveheart blood. And the whole litter is type B. I didn't get one standard looking puppy. Then I bred her brother, this dog, to his half sister off of Divo. And this whole litter was like this, or nicer. I have a sister at home. She's kind of girly looking, but same head, same everything. And he's not perfect. He's a little long bodied and he's not real wide in the chest yet. I don't know if he will get wide in the chest, but the main thing is this head, the width between his eyes, and this voluminous muzzle. I always wanted to produce a dog between Blue Ballistic and BMJ. If I had the white gorilla looking type monster of Blue Ballistic, if I had that with BMJ, it doesn't even have to be quite as perfect as BMJ structure, but just a big dog, you could say, wow, that dog is really built good. And he doesn't have to be a hog hunting dog that can go hunt, because I want him to be like 120, 115, 130, but have a 3-inch muzzle, clean breathing like this. It has not even a rasp. That can go on camping trips with your family, can go for a walk. If you can walk it, he can walk it. And you don't have to worry, I'm going to put him out in the yard, that he's going to get overheated and die.
Like, can a bulldog actually be a decent protection dog for a family with kids and stuff like that?
I had this dog, Clyde. I usually, in interviews, I haven't even talked about it, but it's been a while since I lost him. But he was a puppy that when he was like 6 weeks old, I sent him to a friend of mine who's a master trainer, PSA, decoy, all this stuff. And he brought him along, did all this rag work, built all this imprinting in his brain to work. So he raised Clyde till about 4 months old. At 4 months, he's like, dude, I don't think he's going to work out. I go, why? What's the deal? He goes, he's great with his rag work and all that. And he's confident and happy, but the minute I give him a correction, he just crumbles. He takes it too personal. He doesn't take correction well. And I'm like, well, I have Puma I kept. So you want to test him? So he tested him. He was better. So I just traded him. And I took Clyde. So here I had a dog that was, he was like 4 months old. He wasn't trained, but he was imprinted. So I started going every week to work him. And the frickin' dog loved it. But I always thought Clyde was kind of soft because he was just a sweet dog. So I started putting time and energy into him, but I never did any obedience with him. I thought, I'm going to let him mature. Then I'll put the obedience in him. And I had him to the point where the trainers at the doghouse, they were like, dude, this dog all day long, PSA, no problem. Because I don't know if it's because it was imprinted in his brain. He had the crazy prey drive all my dogs always have. But Clyde just loved to slam a decoy. There wasn't out of any civil life. Matter of fact, he was kind of a soft, sweet dog. Like he'd meet anybody he didn't like. He'd meet people and be such a pain in the ass because he would immediately grab a ball or grab a stick and shove it at you. He'd like he want to show off. And he went at that time I had this old Toyota van. I don't know how many miles it had, but it had no seats in it. I had plywood for the floor in the back, just had the front seat. And I just load dogs up and they'd go everywhere with me. And he went everywhere, like everywhere. One time I went to a gas station. I didn't realize when I shut the door, he jumped through the window. Didn't make any noise. And I opened the door and walked in. And he's at my side, walking into the store. And this lady goes, "Hey, you can't bring that dog in here." And I thought, oh, I'm just making a joke of it. And I said, "That's not a dog. That's my son." And she's like, her face turns a little red. And I said, "Is it because he's black?" He would go anywhere. He did bite work like crazy. He'd slam decoys. He won hardest hitting contests. He could do anything. He was like a super athletic. He was like the Michael Jordan of Bulldogs. He had hang time. He'd do hang time. He'd chase balls nonstop. He'd do anything. Matter of fact, I made a video in 97-degree weather. And I ran him 3 miles on a bike. And then I went to Walmart, left the hatch open on my van with the metal cage in there. And I videotaped him. He cooled down. He got hot, but he cooled himself down. Didn't have to use a hose or anything. And he had that super sweet temperament, and even dog aggression. A couple times at the doghouse, I let him go on a decoy, and there was a big Rottweiler there got off. They have dogs chained to the side, for their next turn, and they'll try to build drive on them. The dog came off his snap and jumped right on Clyde. And Clyde was focused on the decoy. He didn't give a shit. He had no dog. He looked like he had no dog aggression. He was a weird kind of dog. And the dog was trying to bite him, and he just jumped on him. I'm like, "What are you doing?" And so I thought, oh, he's a limp. He's not a bulldoggy. He's not tough. Well, I put him on a hog once that was in the trap. And it was a bigger hog than I wanted to try him on. Because I didn't have a vest. I had a collar, but I didn't have a vest. And he did. He caught great, like instantly. Perfect. But I never took him hunting because he was like my baby.
Right.
If anything happened to him, I'd freak. I'd go to Walmart, leave my window half, open. And I'd come to the car, and these kids and women would have their arms in the car, heading it. Right. He wouldn't do nothing. And I thought, oh, he's so friendly. But I'm like, you really shouldn't put your hand in a strange person's car to pet their dog. Oh, he was sticking his head out. He was real good. Well, other times I went there one time. I parked my car. I went in. And when I came back, there was an ambulance in front of my car. And evidently some old man, something happened. He was like, had Alzheimer's. He was lost. Or they were checking him out. And it's right in front of my car. And there's people everywhere. And I'm like, oh, shit. I must have jumped out of the car because I don't see him. He was just sleeping. He was no problem. And I had other times I'd come out. I was at a feed store one time, and I guess some guy would just want to look at him, and he's sticking his head out the window. And he didn't like that dude. He was like, I come to the car, and the whole car's shaking, and he's lunging at the guy. But I had this kid that worked for me, and he was kind of from the other county, a little more hillbilly even than where I live. And he had his friend. I cut down a bunch of trees, and they were moving a bunch of wood into a pile for me. Anyway, he's out there. I got Clyde running loose, and this guy's got like his girlfriend, I think it was his little girlfriend, and they get into it. I don't know what they were. I don't know if they were drunk or I don't know what their deal was, but they started getting physical, like to a point where they're shoving each other. And it happened so quick, I didn't have time to even say anything. And next thing I see is this black streak. Clyde flew at that guy, smacked him right, like I thought he was going to bite him, but he didn't bite him. His paws hit his shoulder, knocked the guy to the ground, and kind of just sat on top of him. Didn't growl or bark or nothing, but it wasn't an accident. You could tell he did that because he's like, don't, you don't hit that little girl.
Wow.
Don't be shoving her. And the guy's like, get him off me, get him off. I'm saying he hadn't showed, I didn't think he had any dog aggression. I always thought, I'm going to have to protect him if other dogs, because he just, not like my other dogs were like, what'd you say to me? I'm going to kill you. He was like, yeah, okay, you can growl at me. I don't give a shit. He didn't care. Well, 2 times he showed me that he was very effective. He didn't need any help. I was at a park, and there's this 66 park not too far from my house. It has like a 2-mile asphalt path, and then it's got a 2-mile dirt path that goes to this river, Merrick River. And I'm walking, and like a half a block away, I see a pit bull, like a big UKC purple ribbon pit bull looking thing. And there might have been an American Bully, I don't know, and a Labrador and a Jack Russell, and they're all off leash. And they see us and make a beeline right for us. I thought, stupid kids, you know. And so the pit bull comes right up to Clyde, gets right in his face. He's a male. And then the Labrador just circling us, but the Jack Russell, I just turned my head. I see him nipping Clyde in the ass. Next thing you know, Clyde grabs this big 75-pound pit bull by the back of the neck. The dog had a big wide collar, like a nylon collar that had little studs on it. And he grabbed the dog and just started shaking him. And you could hear his nails cross that asphalt. Shh, shh, shh. And Clyde was 25 inches and like 97 to 105 pounds all the time. And so he was a lot taller than that dog. And these kids come running. That's your dog. My dog's on a leash. That little Jack Russell came up to, I punched him like 5 feet. They're all pissed off at me. And finally, I just put my foot on the back of this pit bull's neck and pulled a couple times on Clyde and told him, let go, let go. And eventually, he just let go, and the pit bull took off. And I was like, what?
And he does good in the heat, like no breathing issues or overheating issues.
I mean, no, I would say that like like a good example would be like when we would go out for like a 45-minute walk in the dead of summer, like he was kind of like, that was his like limit. The heat, everything combined. But like say this time, if it was like this time this year, a 45-minute walk, he's not.
He could just keep going.
He could just keep going.
Well, that's the thing is like, you take a pure bully AB for 45 minutes in the summer, most of the time they're dead. You know?
Yeah, he handles it fairly well, and I try and do my due diligence in monitoring that as well. There's been walks that I've made shorter because I could tell he's getting a little heated. Other times he gauges himself, you know.
Well, even with my Rottweilers, I have to watch the heat a little bit.
Well, and they got thicker fur.
You gotta watch ET with a game bred pit bull.
Yeah, for sure.
There's game bred pit bulls that die in the heat of battle.
Yeah.
So you gotta watch it. But
I mean, it's just like us.
With
We can overheat.
With bully American Bulldogs, it's just a chronic thing. Like their throat shuts off. I wanted to change the genetics of my bloodline to where genetically they're not predisposed to having small tracheas, bad breathing, soft palates, and they can't overheat real easy.